Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. It's Tuesday, August 31st, 2010, and this is Day 9 Daily number 169. Pumped to be here. I'm going to go ahead and adjust my little camera. Now we're at the perfect height. I'm in a great mood because today we're going to be doing a little bit of 4 Warpgate action. We're going to discuss all that in a little bit because here at the Day 9 Daily, we do not try to get excited about games. We do not freak out. We try to be a better gamer. Yes, indeed, that is our goal here. But I had a pretty exciting day today because I learned about Heroes of Might and Magic 6 coming out, which is my favorite thing in the world. That like for some reason people have stopped making new stuff; they're only making franchises, which makes me really excited for when I'm 50 and I can be like, oh yeah, aren't you pumped for Heroes of Might and Magic 30? You know, they'll still be making them, and someone will basically say, you gonna get it? And I'll go, nah, I'm still waiting for the Protoss campaign of Starcraft 2. Oh, that's right, that's right. But speaking of Protoss, yeah, I did a little bit of daily yesterday about macro-oriented stuff in Protoss vs. Terran. And I think that of all dailies, that has gotten the biggest backlash of stuff because, again, it's very not intuitive. And so a lot of people are saying that doesn't seem intuitive, that it seems too fragile, it seems like you'll lose. And I wanted to briefly touch on that right now. The idea of how it is okay to lose. What is an okay loss? The best kind of loss is when you straight up never had enough stuff to begin with. Let me use Zerg as an example. You have 85 drones and a spine crawler and he just kills you, right? Just walks up in your base, snaps you in half. That is the right way to lose because then you can say, oh, let me just back off on drones a little bit. Let me back off on drones a little bit. Those drones are late game oriented. They get you the economy to do the late game stuff. That's really good. But you can always back away from that. You can always back away from that. Too often players will build up a huge army expecting something to happen, and when it doesn't happen, they're screwed. Typically this happens with Zerg. You'll see Zergs do things like, oh my gosh, oh, he's going to be coming with a huge Marauder army, and they make like 50 Zerglings, and it never comes out. And they only have 15 drones at this point, and they're screwed for the later stages of the game. Correct way to lose is to just seemingly have absolutely no stuff at all. So with this macro-oriented style, I wanted to also tack on that whole idea of if you get snapped in half and you just never had enough stuff in the first place, that's the correct way to start. It's a lot easier to back off on the powering and sort of ramp up the unit countage. It's pretty straightforward, pretty usual. So let's go ahead and get this daily started. As I will note, I'm a little bit exceptionally furry today. I was actually feeling really cool. It's like, yeah, this huge friggin' man beard. I was like walking back from class with this huge badass look on my face. Then I came home and realized I looked like this. And I was like, oh, not exactly how I wanted, but that's okay. It's okay because you guys never judge me. I know you don't. You just Photoshop me and make it permanent. So we're going to be going into the 4 Warpgate strategy, and the reason I love the 4 Warpgate strategy, the reason why I love this so much, is that it's pretty damn good in every single matchup. Weirdly enough, this thing that I actually forgot to set on fastest that I will do right now, there we go. This is, weirdly enough, a build that works pretty damn reasonably well against all 4 races, to the point where there are actually some Protoss players in the top, 1 of their Diamond division who essentially only 4 Warpgate in all matchups, and they can kind of get away with it. And if it doesn't work, they basically wing it from there. But I wanted to show you many different ways of doing the same build. Many different ways of doing variations on the same idea. Because too often, people will see the 4 Warpgate and they'll say, oh, he just 4 Warpgated. He just did that 4 Warpgate. I actually tried to send that probe to this guy, but I misclicked because I'm awful. I just want to show you, again, variations on a 4 Warpgate. So what I'm going to begin with is the most standard kind of 4 Warpgate. It's a little bit economically focused. You get quite a lot of units up. But you also get quite a lot of probes up. The units come out a little bit later. Actually, in any 4 Warpgate, you get a lot of units out. The map, of course, is Steps of War that I'm playing on today. I'm playing against the very easy computer AI, so we can see everything in a very pure environment. First chrono boosts are largely on probes. I'm going to be making a gateway around 13. I'm going to be scouting kind of late. Well, I guess that's kind of a reasonable time to be scouting, but nothing exactly wrong with this. Very ordinary stuff. Sometimes when I'm doing this, I don't even send the scout out after the gateway. I send it after I build my assimilator or something along those lines. But notice how the probe production is fairly constant. The probe production is fairly constant in this 4 Warpgate build, and I'm spending almost all my chrono boosts on my probes, like so. The idea is that with this 4 Warp Gate, I'm going to be making a lot of expensive units in this variation. The Stalker is something I would label as an expensive unit. Oh, it's a Protoss. So I'm going to go ahead and try to get enough economy up to do that. So you'll notice that around 18, my gateway finishes. I'm going to send my guy early. I want to let you know that I am not going to be scouting with this probe. I'm not going to be bouncing back around in his base, just because I'm not particularly good at talking and playing at the same time. I will completely screw that up. I can either do stuff in my base and micro that probe, or I can do stuff in my base and I can talk to you. One of the two, not both. So I'm going to go ahead and sneak myself out a Zealot, nice and early. Very, very typical sort of thing. I'm going to actually save a little bit of Chrono Boost here. Largely on probes, that's where the Chrono Boost has been spending, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try to get Chrono Boost on that 4 Warp Gate. Or on that Warp Gate. So here comes the Cybernetics Core. I am just happily Chrono Boosting that. There's the first Stalker out. Now, a lot of people have a little bit of contention about whether they should get the Stalker out or whether they should get the Sentry out. Most of the time, people are favoring the Stalkers because it's a ranged unit that is faster than most scouting workers. So you can kill off the scouting worker and you can continue with your build without him really knowing. So in fact, what I'm doing is I'm going to be Chrono Boosting the Stalker. It is a little bit late because I decided to provide an explanation, and of course while I was doing that I did forget a pylon. This sort of thing happens, but I'm not going to get really too far behind. This probe should not be blocked right now. But the idea is then you start slowly adding on gateways. And in the process of adding on gateways, now we start to see why I opted to get this second gas so early. I'm going to be spending most of my money on sentries as I get these 4 gateways up. I can Chrono Boost my warp gates if I want. There's not really a necessity to, because again, this is the economically focused one. Notice that I'm still largely making probes. I'm going to go ahead and make, I'm going to start cutting probes a little bit here as I get the 4th warp gate up. This is the standard. This is the standard. So I actually don't apparently have to cut probes. I can even get another sentry out. Fantastic. That's great news. I'm not actually going to be Chrono Boosting that anymore. I'm going to be Chrono Boosting probes after this pylon finishes. I just like having a lot of probes. As you can tell, I have lots and lots of probes. We're going to be looking at more variations of this coming up in a little bit. Now, I did just want to say, let me actually move this up. This nice little mix of units, very, very easy to defend almost every early push. I think most people are aware of this, but a Zealot, a Stalker, and a Sentry, pretty damn good. Most early pushes, the technique you want to do is that, like, Marauders will come in probably around in like 4 or 5 if he's trying to be really crazy. Marines will come in like 6s or 7s. Zerglings maybe you'll see 8 or 9 or so, or somewhere between I guess 8 and 12. You want to force field the army in half, but you want the half that's on the top of the ramp to be just barely above the top, and your Zealot and your Stalker will pretty much clean everything else up. Now, I don't actually recommend making units out of these starting guys. And I will make another pylon. Perfect, perfect, perfect. And you're probably still noting that, hey, you know what? I'm really, really low on the money still. I'm quite low on the money. I'm going to talk about this pylon in a second. I'm quite low on the money, but that's okay because I'm high on the gas because of that very early second guy. So I can do things like make a whole bunch of sentries. And again, this is the easiest way to spend your money early on. And then I can go back and get those really expensive units, the Stalkers. The Stalkers I would label as a quite expensive unit. I'm still going to be Chrono Boosting my probes in this circumstance. But you can start to see how I can distribute my money properly, right? I can get some Zealots and Sentries if I kind of have a fairly low amount, or if I'm feeling a little bit rich, I can get the Stalker. And against this very easy computer opponent, he is going to absolutely have no chance of winning. Aha, yes, there's my thing finishing. Great. You see, I'm noticing anytime I'm low on money, I just make a sentry. And you can kind of start to see how all these gateways are pretty much constantly producing right here. And you get a really damn huge army really, really fast. And you should, probably remember to build the probes. You can build probes and do this at the same time. Not if you Chrono Boost any of your gateways, but, if you Chrono Boost your probes reasonably much, you can cut probes every now and again. You get yourself a pretty hefty-ass army. Looks good. Looks real good. And there's a conflict at the front. And I think every single person in the universe is aware of this strategy. They've seen it in one iteration or the other. But the big things to note, and by the way, right now I'm going to stop playing. My hand is literally not on the keyboard. See? Here it is. Here it is. Giving you a thumbs up. Yeah, alright, kill him. Yeah. The big things to note, this is Simulator, pretty early. Largely chrono boosting the probes. People don't really acknowledge how important it is to have a lot of probes to get the minerals, so that way you can afford the stalkers in this style. And you don't really need to chrono boost the warp gate a ton. I do it some. And then, of course, to use the second early geyser to make a lot of sentries while this build is going. This is very reasonable. Now, I just briefly wanted to talk about this whole idea of this army coming up. Let me actually get kind of a slow army of sentries. So these sentries, pretend that these sentries are marauders.
I am the voice of the
So he's going to try to get up your ramp like this. The technique is to get it right about like that, so one or two pops up. That's the easy thing to do. Notice that that's kind of far down the ramp. These sentries, actually in their current position, I'll actually back away from the ramp to show you this. These sentries cannot actually see up this ramp. When the force field is planted here, they cannot see anything up there. And that's kind of why you want to plant the force field there and cut off just a small number of units here. So that way, once you've killed this unit on the top, he can't see you. See, look at, you know, our computer AI shooting at me here. That's exactly how you want it to happen. And the Zealot and the Stalker are very good, because the Zealot is melee. It'll run up to the Stalker, or excuse me, it'll run up to the Marauder and kill him off, and all that good jazz. But this guy is just going down. I'm getting him. Alright, cool. So we have the basic idea, the basic understanding. Now, I actually have a notepad file open, because I'm going to start doing some comparisons against these variations. I'm going to do all these on Steps of War. And you're going to start seeing me do slightly different things. Because, again, too often you'll hear people just group things and they'll say, oh, I lost to a 4-warp gate. That's just what happened. He 4-warp gate me out and I lost. And I will go, oh, brutal. And people have their own winged version of it. And it's important that we start understanding the distinctions between these two different kinds, or these actually several different kinds of warp gates. And I'm obviously going to speed this up. Perfect, perfect. Because you hear me talk about the little subtle things. You hear me talk about the little subtle things in a general, vague sense, but rarely do you hear me do a lot of super explicit examples, and that's what today largely is. It's going to be a lot of super explicit examples. Now, last game, you heard me talk about a gateway on 13. I just want to briefly note you heard me talk about gateway on 13. I'm going to build this guy fairly close to the my Nexus, just because I like doing that. It helps me feel a little bit more defended against Marauders. Against Zerg, I might want to do it at my ramp, but overall, pretty straightforward stuff. Pretty straightforward. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pretend for a moment that I am on Kulas Ravine. I'm going to pretend I'm on Kulas Ravine without thinking a ton about the map and all the expansions and all the destructible rocks and the watchtowers. Huge thing to note on Kulas Ravine is that your entrance is really wide. You heard me talk about, one Zealot, one Stalker, one Sentry, force fielding the ramp, see how easy that was. On that map, it's a little bit tougher. It's a little bit tougher to defend that. So I'm actually going to be doing a gateway on 12. I'm going to be doing it just a touch earlier. This is actually the timing I prefer. I do this largely when I'm Protoss and I actually scout on 12. It's kind of something in between scouting on 8 the way Huck would, or scouting really late. Oops, forgot to chrono boost. But yeah, I get my gateway out a little bit faster because I want my cybernetics core out a little bit faster. Still gassing at approximately the same time. Still shifting my probes around to mine a little bit better. The auto mine won't do it as good as a human can, so, you know, trust yourself that you can actually get away with that. But, you know, let's say we're on Kulas Ravine. Again, we're on Kulas Ravine. I have scouted him. I'm going to come back. No reason to stay there and scout because it is a very easy computer opponent. Now, here's something a little different that we're going to actually see. We're going to see me, instead of doing any sort of early gas, mysteriously, I'm not going to be getting the gas. Oh, and I forgot to chrono boost probes there. That's why my cybernetics core went down on 16 instead of 17. But I'm going to get a Zealot out really fast. You'll see a lot of players opt to get the Zealot out before this gas. on a map like Kulas Ravine where you don't have a tight ramp. Because, for instance, on Kulas Ravine, a very popular build is to go Barracks 10, Refinery 10, and to Marauder Rush. And most players are going to be skipping the Zealot and going directly towards the Stalker. That's a very, very popular variation of a 4 Warp Gate, or actually of any Protoss opening. And the Marauder can just micro and kill off the Stalker. One Marauder kills one Stalker. Very, very important thing to know. So if you get a Zealot out with that Stalker, you can manage it a little bit better. And we're going to see a nice little timing pop up here near the end of this as we get closer to the Cybernetics core making. Something that, but what's interesting is that you can actually fit in a gateway right now. Yeah. And you can actually cut probes a little bit here if you want. I got my gateway a touch early, but then you can chrono boost that. And here, suddenly, I am careening towards having a very, very fast Stalker. And you can get the warp gates as well. I'll go ahead and hotkey my 2 gateways. And again, this is essentially the same thing. It's essentially the same thing as we were seeing before. Except, again, I'm awesome. I forget pylons. I'm so good. But we're suddenly getting our gas a little bit later. And then now I can back up and get a geyser. It's going to happen a little bit late. But that's okay, because I'm not focusing on getting a whole bunch of sentries out like I was before. I'm instead focusing largely on the Zealots and the sentries. Excuse me, the Zealots and the Stalkers early. And then this sentry is coming out a little bit later. And this style of Warpgate, what's a huge advantage it gives you? Because it's not just, hey, look, I'm now building a gateway earlier. Aren't I genius? There's extra things that we can do with it. So in particular, one thing I've waited oh so long to show you this, is that you can actually push with these units a lot earlier on. And I don't actually have to play quite so defensively early on. Because a big issue with a lot of 4 warp gates is you want to build that pylon next to his base and push him really fast. In that first standard variation I showed you, it was a little tough because you have to kind of stay up to your ramp, and only once the 4 warp gates finished are you really getting a lot of units. Before then, you're not really... You're trying to rely on cutesy defending, of throwing down force fields at your ramp. But in this build, I'm actually getting only 1 sentry out, and I'm spending the rest of it really on some more heavy-duty units, like the Stalker or the Zealot. The units that can deal a lot more damage. So as I'm getting these 4 warp gates, I can actually just push the front here with these units, and I can make a forward pylon relatively early on. And of course, I'm not really spending the chrono boost. Rough approximation. Getting more of our stuff to come up here. Cool. Nifty, nifty, nifty. Nifty, nifty. Good fancy stuff. Again, you can use the usual logic of getting sentries if you so need be. I'm just going to plant this down in the middle of the map. But this amount of units, these 6 units, I only had about 4 by the time my warp gate finished in the last game. My warp gate was not really hugely more delayed, but I am getting these extra units up. What's delayed are these 2 gateways a little bit. And of course, this is delayed a little bit because I'm not spending any chrono boost. Let me go ahead and select these a little bit. But I actually have a lot of trouble with this style of warp gate on Kulas Ravine if I'm Terran. Because when I'm Terran and he starts pushing me really aggressively right at the start of the game with like this mix of units, just from those 2 warp gates. First of all, he's fairly proof to any sort of early rushes, but when this stuff sort of happens, I'm in defensive mode, and I'm trying to, you know, get myself on my feet, and then all of a sudden he comes in with all these units, oh my goodness. And with this huge sweep of gateways, again, you can get a big advantage. You have a little bit of issue getting the probes. In the first example we saw, we get the probes, we get quite a few probes out. In this case, we get a few more units out. We get a slightly delayed 4 gate, but we get a slightly earlier pressure. I mean, these are little trade-offs that you can make. But again, if you see this kind of style, you would look at it and you go, oh, it's a 4 warp gate, yeah. But, you know, it's pretty significant that this second gateway popped out so fast. Because interestingly, a lot of builds that are stable against the 4 gate where you wait to attack, that is the 4 gate we saw in game 1, the ones that are stable against that will actually end up losing to that early 2 gate. Ends up losing to the early 2 gate because you are under so much pressure that you can't quite get stable enough. But likewise, there are other builds that are good against holding the early pressure. So, I mean, again, nice little cute variation. I'm totally leaving that chat. Now, I want to do something a little bit goofy. And now I want to talk about the Ultra Cheese version of the 4 Warp Gate. And this is something that is really, really fun that you should kind of be aware of. Oh, come on, BattleNet. Let me play against the very easy computer again. By the way, I would just like to, once I get into this game, holy cow. Is my internet dying? I'm going to check my stream. I just really want to play against the computer, and it won't let me. Yeah, oh look, it's already setting me as the yellow Protoss. Whoopsie daisies, closing that. Yeah, there's my computer opponent. I want him to be Protoss. Let's see how long that takes. Good, I'm going to make my opponent very easy. I'm going to start this bad boy. Now, after this one, I'm going to briefly review how different of a position these all put you in. Just so you can see explicitly the end results of all that good jazz. So let's go ahead and load this up. It's loading up. Great. So I'm going to... Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! I can't wait for you to see this lag. All right, here, I'm going to click on the top building. 3, 2, 1, click. Bam! Look at that delay in the rally. Oh my goodness, I am very curious as to why that lag is going so wrong. So wrong. By the way, Gamer, my good old stream mod, if you could just tell me if anything's going horrifically wrong, I would love to know. Because let me tell you something, this game is really laggy. Oh my goodness, it is laggy. Now you're going to notice something interesting I do. Oh, I'm chrono boosting my Nexus right away. Oh, why is he doing that? Why is he doing that up to 10? Well, there I have presents in store for you. So here is the delayed 10 pylon, thanks to about, looks like, 3/4 of a second lag. Oh, no, that was supposed to be on 10. That was supposed to be on 10! Oh, no, that's fine. No, that was right. Okay, sorry. I'm, like, not even paying attention. Alright, cool. I'm too busy trying to make sure my stream's not dying, so let's go ahead and do a gateway on 10. Oh, is that probe idle? I'm, like, so awful. That's okay. It won't really affect it too much. Oh, I have enough to chrono boost, and it doesn't appear that I am. Oh, the mysteries that Day 9 has in store. We're going to see how to get an ultra fast 4 warp gate. It's very, very simple sort of cheese build. It happens about as straight uply as you would imagine, but this is the sort of thing that if you want to do it really pristinely, you need a lot of refinement of your strategy. I'm actually sitting forward in my chair because I don't want to botch this again, because it's totally is something that I would do. It's pretty psychotic, what I'm going to be showing you. So here I'm going to be sending my probies into gas. Alright, it looks like my thing is getting close to being done. Where's my probe? Thank you. Build it. Oh my goodness, that lag is just amazing. This is like the biggest lag I think I've ever had. Something crazy is happening. Oopsie daisies on that. I want that as 6. So I'm going to build myself a little pylon here. Ugh. Oh, that is just brutal. That is just brutal. Now, I could make a zealot here. You know, I'll go ahead and be cool and make 0 zealots. That's right, 0 zealots. Because one of the big keys to this strategy is sending out an early probe scout. I was a little bit busy obsessing about the micro. But, oh, actually, I'm botching this build quite hard. These guys are supposed to be popping out of gas right when you hit... I'm tempted to restart this, because this is just like the laggiest thing in the universe. You know what? I'm going to restart it, because you know what? It's my show! Ha! Let me make sure that this stream lag is not that bad. Oh, by the way, I'd just like to state for the record in single player, 97% of achievements. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Alright. Let's go to single player. Let's play versus the AI. Load. Alright, you know, I'm not sure this battle lag is going to get fixed, so instead of talking about the lag, I'm actually going to focus on the game. I'm actually going to focus on the game. Yes, I do want you to be blue. I want both of us to be Protoss. Cool. Cool, 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 cool. And by the way, I would like to say for the record that I have no shame that I restarted that. Oh, there's the good lag. Oh my god. Oh my god, that's like almost instantaneous. Oh! Yeah, I have no shame at all in the fact that I had to restart that. Because you know what? Like, if your builds are not super clean, that's actually really, really bad. I don't want to do I don't want to do an approximation this time as I did in the last time. I want to show specifics of the build. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be building a gateway on, or a pylon on 10 and gateway on 10. Pylon on 10, gateway on 10, because I want my gateway out fast, because I want my core out fast, because I want to begin chrono boosting that warp gate as early as I can. Because again, I'm going for a giant cheese rush. I want to beat my opponent to warp gate and begin just hammering his front with units, says Sean as he forgets to build a pylon. I really, really want to be able to kill him fast. So rather than trying to do anything too goofy, I'm just going to straight up get my cybernetics core out very, very quickly. Now, ordinarily, if you build a pylon on 10, you build the gateway on 10, it's fine. Everything looks okay. I'm not going to scout yet. I'm going to actually do this build properly. There's my gateway. There's my nexus. Excellent, 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 excellent. Alright, cool. I'm not going to be chrono boosting probes anymore. I'm going to save up my chrono boost. I want to have a lot of chrono boost that I can spend on that warp gate research. And it's going to be kind of crazy how much I'm actually focusing on that cybernetics core. I'm sending out this probe at kind of a seemingly weird time. I don't quite want to send him out after the gateway. I don't quite want to send him out after the assimilator. So I'm sending them out somewhere in between. I actually practiced this build to the point where I'm pretty comfortable with that. And we're going to see exactly why I like this timing so much. We're going to see a little bit of what I would call the refinement factor. I'm a little bit not used to my gateway being late. You saw me send my probe early on. I was expecting him to get there early. Okay, so right now, you see the time that my probe gets to his base? See the time that my probe gets to his base? Look at my money. It's at 90. See how that money's at 90? If that money gets to 100, can I make a zealot, or should I make a pylon? I don't know. I need to scout him to make sure of whether I'm safe enough getting away without a zealot. Okay, cool. I am safe enough getting away without a zealot. Therefore, I am not going to build a zealot right now. It feels a little uncomfortable scrolling with my middle mouse button. So I'm going to try to shift Q this up, because normally I micro by clicking that. But again, I'm windowed. See what happens when my mouse goes off the screen? Nothing! It just goes off the edge of the map. Yeah! Alright, and of course, as I say that, I forget to pull guys out of gas. It's okay if this is a little bit late. So notice that my... Actually, I'm going to hide this probe down here and hope the zealot doesn't kill it. Notice that my Nexus was pretty damn close to maxed on energy. Not quite maxed. As I begin making tons of pylons. And I'm actually going to be staring at this for a huge amount of time. Ordinarily, I would have to be microing in this base. Ordinarily, I'd have to be microing. I want to get an 18th probe out. That number seems pretty damn critical to me. It's pretty damn important to get that 18th probe out. I really, really want to do that. And as you start to get money when your chrono boost is coming, that's when you start building pylons in this map. But still, I'm looking at the minimap, and I'm glancing back and forth between the chrono boost and here. A lot of people have not really gotten used to how fast you can get this warp gate if you spend all your chrono boost. Notice how it's getting really close to being done, and my gateway is not even, my extra gateways are not even really finished. I'm going to go ahead and build 3, but I'm even spending this last chrono boost on that because I do want it very, very, very fast. And look at the timing of this. Look how everything nicely lines up to where I have exactly 400 minerals. A chrono boosted, fully chrono boosted warp gate takes about as long, or the fully chrono boosted warp gate research takes about as long to build. Ah, don't go back there. Ah! Takes about as long to build as a gateway. About as long. And here comes the warping in. Now, I'm just going to do something silly. I'm going to focus right down here on the warp gates. I just want you to look at the money. And you can do things like chrono boost this, because again, we're cheesy as hell. We're cheesy as hell. And look, I always have right about the same amount of money. And this is really important when you're doing this cheese. I don't want to accept that. I'm winning, man. I gotta win hard. One thing that people tend to mess up quite a bit when they're doing this build is they forget the pylon after they build these 3 in the base. But you have barely about 500 to do this. And see, they start getting a little bit behind if you're spending chrono boost on the gateways themselves. But it's really these first 3 waves when you get 12 zealots that makes this super, 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 super strong cheese. So obviously this example is a little bit exaggerated. But what I'm going to do is we're going to do a little brief comparison between... let's go ahead and rewatch some replays. Here we go. There's my botched 3-minute game. So I want to load up that initial base one, that base game. And we're going to speed up a little bit, and we're going to see exactly how long it took to get the warp gates. Again, leaving this replay bar intentionally open. Kind of curious to see what state we're going to get to. Alright, cool. Yeah, we see me getting my cybernetics core. And see I'm getting the warp gate pretty much ASAP. Here's me forgetting my pylon. Perfect. Now we're getting the warp gates as usual. I'm not really forgetting any probes here. Waiting very, very long to make sure nothing gets queued. And, alright, cool. Okay, there's when the warp gate finished. Let's rewind and get an exact time on this. Yeah, it looks like about 5 minutes and 40 seconds. 5:45 was the time that I'm a little bit more used to. But cool, cool. I like it. I dig it. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and quit this replay. And this will probably like blow a lot of people's minds. This is kind of insane how fast you get it when you non-stop chrono boost it. Let me go ahead and speed this up. Alright, here's me. Yeah, and what do I do? Forget my first pylon. Very good, very good. Excellent. Perfect. Thank you. This is actually kind of nuts how fast it comes out. Alright, cool. Here's the cybernetics core coming out. And these are times that you should kind of be aware of in your head. Alright, look, I'm not even getting close to 5 minutes and 45 seconds. Can he really get it a full minute earlier? Almost. You get it about 45 seconds earlier. So, you're starting... This is why I do a lot of flopping back and forth between replays. You saw me do that yesterday where I flopped back and forth between the standard, seemingly normal kind of style of doing PvT and then this like crazy macro style. And we mysteriously discovered that you can be 40 food ahead at the same point in time. Wow, it's nuts. That's so awesome. That's so good. But the one that I really want to kind of end with of these three is looking at the sort of slightly off-color version where you get this faster second warp gate. I like this one quite a bit because this solution of getting the very fast second warp gate is really all about solving the problem of what the hell do I do about this wide ramp. Well, if it's a problem for me, it's a problem for him. I'm still not going to abandon the idea of 4 warp gate because you heard me say so many times 4 warp gate is strong, 4 warp gate is strong, 4 warp gate is really strong, you can do it in all the matchups. Zealot, Stalkers, and Sentries are a very versatile force. They're very versatile, they're very strong, they're very good. It's strong, damn it. But as we can see here, finishing a little bit late because again I wasn't spending my chrono boost on the warp gates, which I could have been doing. But again, it's the same time. But this stuff, these little small sets of units, though they don't seem like much, can really be quite powerful. And a lot of problems that you have are almost always motivations for solutions. So I'm going to show you an example of this really fast. So I personally really like 2-gating my opponents. I really like 2-gating Zergs. And let's say I'm thinking to myself, will this game ever load? So while that loads, I'm thinking to myself, I want to keep 2-gating people. I like 2-gating people. But is there some way I can transition into a 4 warp gate really, really easily? So I'm going to kind of show you a dumb, drawn-out example. I'm actually going to leave this game very fast, so I don't even care what difficulty he is. Thank God for this countdown. Oh, that's perfect. That's probably why I should actually go to single player instead of multiplayer. Yes, good, good. Countdown. Perfect. Perfect. So I'm going to show you this one little brief thing in the midst of this lag. It's 7:40 right now. This should... you know what? I'm actually going to skip the... Oh, Jesus. Actually, that lags so much I'm going to have to go into single player. I'm going to go ahead and skip the example that I was going to do, which was to... create game. Come on. I was going to initially show you a 2-gate rush where I go 13-14 gate. I'll just go ahead and make you Zerg. I bet he's going to like 6-pool me. I'm going to lose. It's going to be awesome. So I'm going to do 2 loops of this. I'm going to do 2 little iterations here. As I, as usual, go into the gameplay menu and put it to fastest. Perfect. I'm going to do 2 little iterations of this. I am going to say to myself, you know what? I love the 2-gating people. I also love 4-gating people. Can I plug these 2 builds into one another? Can I plug these 2 builds into one another? Can I use the strength and the might of getting units so quickly with a 4 warp gate? and combine that with the pressure I have of an early 2-gate. So I'm going to go ahead and make my... And then I have to click back here because I cannot scroll the screen, and I do not have F keys, which bothers me deeply. But okay, middle mouse button, no problem at all. Alright, cool. So we're going to try to experiment with this. Normally I go 12-gate, 13-gate. Normally I go 12-gate, 13-gate. But the problem with this, and I know this problem, is that all my money gets devoted into zealots and pylons. I have no extra money in the slightest at all to get any sort of gas. At all. None at all. So you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a gate on 12. And then I'm going to make a gate on 14. I'm just going to see how that works out for me. I'm going to see how that works out for me. A lot of times when I'm trying to figure out builds like this, I just test things to see how they end up working out. I'm also going to be chrono boosting probes. I'm going to try to get a few more probes in here instead of trying to save all my chrono boost for the zealots. Because if my zealots are slower to build, I'm not going to be spending as much money on zealots. So maybe I can free up some money so I can get a cybernetics core in my gas geyser a little bit more quickly. You might be saying, goodness, Day 9, you are not scouting. To which I say, yes, I scout after this pile. Excellent. So here comes my happy little gateway being done. As usual, I'm going to chrono boost him. I'm going to go ahead and rally to my Zergy buddy. And come on, little pylon. Good little pylon. Finish little pylon. Now here's something weird. I'm just going to test getting gas here. I'm going to see how that works, getting gas. So again, the adjustment I'm making is normally I go 12-gate, 13-gate, and I save up a lot of chrono boost. This time I'm going 12-gate, 14-gate, and chrono boosting probes a little. So that way my zealots come out a little bit slower. But it's still some pretty damn good pressure. Still pretty damn good. Oh, look, I have enough money for that. I'm still making probes. I'm going to have enough money for this little guy. Oh, it looks like he's a little bit late, but that's okay. I saved a chrono boost. And it looks like I'm going to have to be getting a pylon. Oh, the dreaded fast evolution chamber build. And I'm clicking guys into my geyser. Nifty. Okay, well, and anytime this happens, anytime this sort of thing happens, I call this a bump, right? I want to build a zealot, but I can't. I gotta wait, and I'm also waiting on a probe. Okay, well maybe I need to cut a probe earlier. I need to get a pylon a little bit earlier. This is basically a usual 2-gate build. I'm gonna be spending again more of my chrono boosts on probes, but I'm feeling a little concerned. I'm feeling a little concerned because I felt that one bump where that zealot, this guy right here, this guy, should have this zealot buddy popping out at the same time. I'm aware of that. Now, at this point, you can start using other timings that you know to help your play be better. So, for instance, a timing that I know is right when you have 5 zealots. Here are my 5 selected zealots. Right when you have 5 zealots is about the time when all those larvae that pop off from that first queen are getting close to being done. So you can kind of be like, ooh, scary time. It's a little bit concerning. So I'm going to just back off. I'm going to back off, no problem. And in this period of time where I'm backing off with 5 zealots, I'm going to cut all zealot production. And I'm going to try to now go back into my 4 warp gate mode. I'm going to try to go back into my 4 warp gate mode. But hey, I have a little extra bonus for you fine folks. Once this finishes, ba-bam. I'm going to get 2 stalkers out. I'm going to push very aggressively early on. With just my stalkers and my zealots. Unless he's going for Zergling Baneling, in which case I'll probably play a little bit more passively. But stalkers are really... Whoopsie daisy. Stalkers are really damn good against roaches. Like, if you have... A fact I tend to know, if you have 15 zealots against like 8 roaches, the roaches win because they can keep running back. But if you have 15 zealots and 2 stalkers, suddenly you can take on huge amounts of roaches. So I'm going to be continuing to use this logic. And then, hey, alright, my stalkers are getting close to finishing. I'm going to continue to spend money on probes. That chrono boost I saved, I'm going to be spending it all on the warp gate. Cool. And remember this same logic that I was using before? If I'm low on money, make sentries. No reason not to do that. Oh, by the way, imagine I'm pushing Zerg. Imagine that I am pushing Zerg. Imagine, yes. And I'm still keeping an eye on this warp gate because I waited so long for it to come up.
I am the voice of the eclipse. It shall be as
Attack! It's an attack. making a pylon. I'm also going to send out another guy to show you just a last silly little trick that Kiwikaki did a ton at MLG. Oh, look, there's a roach.
Intriguing.
See how smart I am? Yeah, I can kill roaches really good. So I should have done that last chrono boost on the warp gate instead of gloating that I could annihilate one roach. But as usual, hey, look how awesome this is. Here's my usual 4 warp gates coming out. And this is actually very scary to deal with, what I've just showed you. But one last trick I want to show you before I do that trick. Notice how everything, by the way, I've stopped playing, everything eventually dumps back into this 4 warp gate. And the 4 warp gate still has the same basic ideas of, wow, damn, that's a lot of units knocking at my front door. You want to spend your brief surges of money on the stalkers and bounce back with zealots and sentries when you're getting a little bit broke. But this is something that Kiwikaki was doing quite a bit. Let me just wait for... Oopsie daisies, this distance is a little wrong. But how often have you been playing and there's some pesky player who has his ramp blocked really, really, really well? Kiwikaki was really good about this, where he would have this zealot stalker army and he would build a pylon just outside the edge here. And whenever he pushed up, what he would do is he would rush up like this and then spam zealots. Zealots specifically, not stalkers, because zealots are very good at busting ramps. But I cannot tell you how many times he did this against Huck, and that it was totally, totally, totally kick-ass. Totally, unbelievably, sickly awesome to see. Because again, I have a lot of probes. Anytime you have a lot of probes and 4 warp gates, you can constantly make the zealots. Constantly make them. Now, I wish I could have done that just exact goal like 1,000,001 more times. I wish I could have really showed you the process of trying to refine that, but I'm going to save that process for later builds. I'm actually going to sit down and say, here's my goal. I'm actually going to be doing a Terran versus Terran build order tomorrow. I'm going to show you exactly the process of repeating it again and again and again, how I refine it. We're going to end up with something pretty damn good. And it's not going to be an example of how to do it, or let me rephrase that. It's not going to be some contrived thing where I try to do lots of little mistakes or lots of big mistakes to try to show the newer players. It's literally going to be me using my exact methods to work on a build that I've wanted to work on. It's going to be a Terran versus Terran Thor build. So yeah, like, so recap of what we talked about today. First of all, the standard 4 warp gate and all the basic techniques, why we get the gas early, why we are getting so many probes, because it is a very expensive build if we want to be really hammering with a lot of stalkers. In the second game, we said, hey, we can actually delay that gas. I actually got a little too quickly in that game, which is why I was broke so much and why, couldn't get that pylon. But again, you kind of cut back on that. You put the pressure on with the gateways first, and then you have a little bit later of a 3rd and 4th gateway. But often you can get in a very good position with that probe. You can move out earlier, you can be aggressive earlier and plant pylons at his front and end up killing your opponent a lot earlier. In the third example, we just showed an all-out cheese and showed that if you actually chrono boost really, really hard, what the other end of the extreme is. Game 1 was the extreme of chrono boosting largely probes and trying to get up an economy. Game 3 that we did, which was a tester did against Huck and the Razor King of the beta, that was the extreme version of chrono boosting your warp gate a ton. And what we saw was we can't really get a lot of probes. We can't get a lot of units early, and it's basically a cheese all in. So there's actually a lot of wiggle room for a 4 warp gate. Huge amounts of wiggle room with that. So I wanted to show you. And also the last one was me just saying, hey, I like 2 gating. I want to take the idea of 2 gating and do it with my own thing. And let's actually briefly take a look at that that last game and see when it is that I'm actually getting the warp gate out. Because in our first game, it was 5 minutes and 45 seconds. In our super fast game, it was 5 minutes exactly. And in this game, I would imagine it would be closer to 6 minutes and 45 seconds. It'd be a minute later, but again, the goal is to do harassment with these gateways. It might be closer to 7 minutes, 15 seconds, something like that. But these are times that I like to write down for myself. These are times that I really like to write down. Yes, here's my 7-air score coming out. You see me saving up my chrono boost. Going to be spending all my energy on that. And yeah, it'll probably end up finishing close to 6 minutes, 45 seconds. Hey, cool. About 7 minutes. Great. Great. So about a minute later, but if you can put your opponent back with this Zealot Harass, Why not do that opening? Right? Why not try to begin with the problem, which is, hey, if I 2 warp gate him, or if I 2 gate him, I can't get these warp gates up fast enough. How do I fix that problem? Anytime you have a problem, you're basically saying, I have a motivation for a new style of build order. So let's see here. I'm going to take questions about the 4 warp gates. Okay, so here's a good question by Shovel, who says, I love the look of the 4 gate, but what if the Terran walls and bunkers in? And if you can break it, does the spills have an economic follow-through? So the 4 warp gate, the reason it's so strong is because it just wins a lot, like right off the bat, and it has a lot of variety to account for early game problems. My problem with the 4 warp gate is like Shovel says, the follow-up is kind of tough. The best follow-up you can hope for is to spend all your money on Zealots and Sentries and let your cash build up so you can build a Nexus and expand. Do not try to get more tech structures because you basically will completely stop using one or more of those gateways. Seriously. I do not recommend that at all. So that is the absolute biggest concern. But what most 4 warp gating players do is just stop making units altogether. It looks really funky. I don't exactly like it, but that's really what players have been doing, just to make you aware of the trends. But what I love about the 4 warp gate is you're trying to win with the 4 warp gate push. And for a new player, that is the end of the strategy. I'm not worried about anything else. If you're a new player, suddenly that's game right there. It's this full arc that ends with pushing and trying to kill him with 4 warp gates, constantly making units. So this arc, I'm trying to show to the new players, hey, cool, let's explore all the different ways that we can get from the start of the game to the 4 warp gate push. We can go around this way with our super all-in. We can go around this way, which is a standard arc. We can do the 2 gate style, the Day 9 said, trying to figure that out. And all the issues that you have and all the problems that you have in there will really help you learn what it means to improve as a player and what it means to do, what it means to refine some builds. So let's see here. Yeah, so, I mean, people are asking questions. What if you're doing, some sort of fast Banshee style and someone comes in with Cloak and Mineral Line? I mean, this is, again, part of the reason I think that 4 warp gating is kind of weak is because you basically have to say, hope I kill him. Sure, the answer is make a robotics facility, get an observer, and then keep 4 warp gating him. That's basically what you're trying to do. This is what you're trying to do. Oh, yeah, so Taffy Guy says, Sean, any comments about everyone and their mother calling all 4 gate builds all in? I would call some of the styles I did all in. For instance, you saw me do the very obviously all in, where I pulled guys out of gas and chrono boosted all the warp gate and stopped making probes and was building pylons in the base. I think that on a map like Blistering Sands, where you can really exploit a lot of stuff thanks to that back door, there's no reason not to 4 warp gate in a lot of circumstances. You can 3 warp gate and get an expansion faster, but if you want a 4 gate, go ahead and do it because the back door is there. Because you can batter your opponent enough on Blistering Sands that if you stop making units altogether on the 4 warp gate and just expand, you've done so much damage with your push that it's okay that you have this huge bump in your play. So that's fine. Oh yeah, so here's a great question by Nate Dogg. Do you think it's reasonable to skip a robotics facility and instead get hallucination in order to scout and trick your opponent into thinking you're going to build you're actually not? What I would say is hallucination is another way to just strengthen the 4 warp gate build. And you heard me say you're starting here and then you're going to try to win with the 4 warp gate push. In this arc, why not try to grab hallucinate in there to see if that solves any problems, such as getting a Colossus out to tank a lot of damage. Whoops. Or getting a Phoenix out to do some sort of scouting. Yeah. All right. Woohoo. So really what this was more of, what this daily was more of, was taking perhaps the simplest build out there, the 4 warp gate, and trying to determine different ways to do it. And I want people to go out and try those to experience the flavor of that. Because now what I want you to do is I want you to think of another build like, what's a good one? Okay, so early expanding Protosses against Zerg will go 4 Warp Gate, 2 Robo, Colossus. Really normal, right? They go Sentry, or excuse me, they go Stalker, Colossus. Super normal. But what are all the ways that you can get to that point? Oh my god, I could 2-gate rush, and then I could get my Nexus up, and then I could get 2 more gates, and I could do 4 warp gate pushes, and then slowly add on the robotics facilities. Or I could early expand and then rush for the robotics facility to get a scout out, and then be going 2 gateway and 2 robotics facility, and then much later add on those warp gates 3 and 4. There's so many ways to get there that have all these different flavors. So I hope that you do more experimentation. Yeah. So that's going to actually be it for today. I'm going for about 45 minutes now. Just sort of showing a variety of strategies. What I'm going to be doing tomorrow in Day 9 Daily number 170 is trying to smooth out a build that I personally have been working on a lot. It's going to be just me smoothing it out. Just constant smoothing out of a build. Showing all the problems I'm having and just going, ugh, I hate the way that feels so much. Ugh. And all that good garbage. And it's going to be very similar to what players like Noni do. It's going to be me in single player trying to make something good. So then I can go on ladder and make it even better. That's it. I'm done. I'm done with the daily. Hope it was useful. I'm saying goodbye. Goodbye.